Welcome to Shattered Reality with your hosts Kate Valentine and Fahrusha. Prepare to have your paradigms shifted and your truths questioned. And now, Shattered Reality.
Well, here we are again, and I know you want to slate the show, Fahrusha, so go ahead. This is Kate Valentine and, of course, Fahrusha.
Hi. Today is May 23rd, 2017. I'm Fahrusha, and I'm here with Kate Valentine. And like she said, this is our Shattered Reality podcast. Mm-hmm. And we're so happy to have you with us today because we have a really, really unusual and interesting guest. And one of the oddest things about this is he's also from Sheffield in England, which is the same place our last podcast's guest mm-hmm. was from, Dr. Milton Wainwright, mm-hmm. With the wonderful
weather balloons and high altitude
and all that good stuff.
Microorganisms from above.
So yes. Apparently Sheffield in England, the UK, is a hotbed of new age experimentation, because today we have Dr. Phillip Davidson, who would like to be known as Dr. Phil for the rest of the program, even though that's slightly implausible. And Dr. Phil Davidson, our friend here, he started out his working life as an IT guy, and he traveled all over the world for multinational corporations and spent quite a few years in Hong Kong doing just that. And when he got back to jolly old, what did he do? He went into consciousness research. He got his PhD in psychology, and he became, amongst other things, a bereavement counselor. But in this
very special way.
Yes. And in this bereavement, he noticed that parents were very, very upset when they lost a child, understandably so. And often they didn't get over it for years and years and the rest of their lives. So he continued on with consciousness research. And I met Dr. Phil Davidson at the Monroe Institute, where he was a member of the professional division, as am I. And he's been studying consciousness for a long time, and he has a special program for allowing people to contact their lost loved ones. So now, without any further ado, Dr. Phillip Davidson of Sheffield, UK.
Sheffield, UK, the Centre of Consciousness Research. Thank you, Fahrusha. Fantastic. I don't know if I can say any more about that because that's everything. No, I think, thank you for that intro. I just want to go back a little bit there mm-hmm. And just kind of pick up where I was an IT director in multinationals working in Asia Pacific. And I suppose there comes a time in a person's life when they kind of decide that, is this the right job for me? And I think it was one of those days when about 300 or 400 people had been screaming at me about their IT systems, when I decided, I don't know if I want to work in IT anymore. And I think that's when all the kind of powers that be come together in the cosmos, and you think to yourself, I need to change what I'm doing. And I've always been very, very interested in psychology, but it's like, can I go from information technology straight into psychology? And as it happens, yes, you can, especially when you leave your job and everybody's screaming at you saying, why are you leaving? And you don't really want to tell them why, because you've just had enough. Mm-hmm. And I remember going to the university and saying, I really want to study psychology here. And the woman looking at me saying, hey, you're pretty old. We only take young guys here. And I'm thinking, well, thank you very much for that vote of confidence. But what did happen after that was I was accepted into one of the top universities in the UK. I think mostly because I said things along the lines of, I'm really, really keen and I have money and I want to study. And they were nodding their head saying, yes, we like the fact you've got money and want to study. So they took me onto the course and never really looked back after that. And it was all about psychology. I always wanted to know about consciousness, different types of experiences that people had. And you hear all these things about like meditation and Buddhist monks, and you read all these kind of wild, fantastical things that they can do. And it's like, is any of this stuff real? And what does it say in kind of normal psychology about these types of experiences that are very anomalous? And so going through an undergraduate degree, there's nothing spoken about consciousness. And it's like, what the hell's going on here? So it's a case of, I was thinking in the third year undergraduate degree, you need to do a big project. And I thought, what can I do? How about testing whether you can change someone's perception of the world, alter their conscious experience? And so I worked very closely with one of my friends in the university, and I was able to successfully change his experience of certain things. And it's like, to me, this sort of said, it seems to be a crack in the door here. Your conscious experience of the world is one thing, but it seems that you can alter it. I wonder if this links to what Buddhist meditators do, and all these other guys talk about these other anomalous types of experiences. So I decided that I wanted to stay on and do a PhD. And it's really when I decided to do the research into this that the real fun started, because that's when I was allowed loose on first years to do experiments. And all good experiments and ethical and above board. But really, I was able to then put together a set of psychological processes that allowed you to move from this waking state of consciousness that we're in now to this other type of consciousness, which I suppose I can only describe as access to the unconscious. And normally you hear about this type of access when people talk about things like, hey, I was lying in bed one night and I was dreaming, and then I kind of woke up in my dream and I started to fly around and do all this kind of weird stuff. And these types of experiences that people reported in things like lucid dreaming or out-of-body experience or near-death experience were very similar to the types of experiences I could produce in participants using my psychological techniques. And it's like, there seems to be a common thread here. So I call this technique EVT because you can't, after a while, you need to call it something. It's sort of like, I'll call it EVT. And what we're going to do is we're going to take so many subjects and we're going to take them through the process, and then we're going to ask them, what were your experiences when you went from this waking state now talking to me to this other state that we called EVT? And it seemed to me that they all had very similar types of experience. The feelings of kind of becoming very, very heavy, losing sense of their body, then feelings of lightness, kind of some people reported leaving their body, but most of them reported that they were in another place, they were operating in that environment, they were walking around, talking to people, doing things, all kinds of exciting stuff. So for me, it was a case of, I think I found an access path from this waking consciousness to this other type of consciousness, the unconscious. And so over many years of research in my PhD, kind of mapped out everything that you needed to do to move from here to there in very, very great detail. And one of the things that was very interesting is that I tended to find that there were 4 types of people who came to do the experiment. And the first type are these types of people that, they close their eyes, they get very relaxed. And within 5 minutes, they're saying things like, yes, I'm flying in the sky and I can see my mother and father and I'm contacting aliens and I can see this, the other. And it's like, you're looking at your clock and going, they've been in it only took 5 minutes to get in. And these type of people, I think I was explaining to Fahrusha the other night, it's a bit like when you drill for oil. Sometimes when you drill into the ground, they all come straight out because it's just beneath the surface. And what I found is these people only needed a little bit of encouragement or a small number of techniques, and they were able to access their unconscious immediately. It's like, and off they go. And then there were the second types of participant who came along, and you'd be using the techniques and trying to get them relaxed and all. And what you'd find out is this type of person, it took hours to get them to a state where they were able to freely move around within their unconscious and experience all the things that the other people experienced. And then there was what I call the people who were very hard. So what you would, and we're talking about dedication here, I would sit them in the chair, relax them, and I'm really talking 7 or 8 hours later, these people would be saying things like, oh, I think I can see something. Oh, I'm in somewhere. Someone's talking to me. Oh, it's a wonderful place, all this kind of stuff. So there were 3 types of people that kind of came to do the experiment. And it's only via the experimentation that you worked out some people have access very easily. It's a very thin kind of resistance. Some people, what I call kind of middle to easy. They are the majority of people in the world. It takes you a few hours to get them in. And then there's these people who are quite hard, they're quite resistant. You may spend all day kind of drilling on that person, trying to get them to a state where they're totally relaxed and then can move over and access their unconscious. So that process I called was EBT, and I did a lot of experimentation with a friend there. And it was during that experimentation that kind of mapped out everything that needed to happen to get you from here all the way over to there, and all the steps in between, and all the signs and signals that said, yes, we're going along the right place, you're going to the right space.
Did you mention that there was a fourth type of person? I think you did, that type of person that was so left-brained that they kept thinking about, well, what does this mean, and why am I doing this while it was happening?
Oh, yes. I suppose if you look at these range of people, there's this kind of, I call like concrete people. They're very concrete, very analytical, and as you're saying, oh, relax, let go, allow yourself to just get absorbed into and they're saying, I think I'm getting relaxed now. It's like, yes, very interesting now. Be quiet and relax and close your eyes and just let go. I think I'm relaxing more now. It's like, okay, right. And that can go on for a very, very long time. And I do remember one particular guy, and I think I need to get a medal or a badge for sort of efforts. I spent 4 days on this guy, and we're talking 6-7 hours a day, and it's like, what the heck is this guy doing? And so what I learned with these guys that are very, very hard to get in, that the part of the process had to be that every time I did a part of the technique, I needed to stop the technique, and I needed to sit them down and say, now, tell me everything that's going on in your head. Because what tended to happen was people were saying, yes, I'm relaxing, it's great, and keep going. And it's like, no, you need to tell me more. So they'd say things like, well, as I was relaxing, nothing really happened. And you're thinking, okay, what does nothing mean to you? Well, as I was relaxing and nothing was happening, this guy was talking to me. And he was telling me that, man's destiny in the world is just like, hang on, whoa. So this is nothing happening. Yeah, nothing was happening. Like, well, who was this guy you were talking to? Oh, we had a really long conversation. We were talking about the nature of reality, why we're here, what man's destiny is, how I can contribute. And I'm thinking, okay, that's nothing happening. So for me, it was a kind of a bit of a wake-up call. I need to really, really interrogate these people as to the nature of their experience. So I'd say, tell me what nothing is to you. Tell me what not much is happening. And you'd find that in this kind of morass of there's nothing happening, all kinds of experiences were being reported. So things like, that was an interesting experience, Phil, 40 minutes, and they come out and they're looking okay, a bit disappointed maybe. It's like, so tell me about this nothing then, that nothing's going on, there's nothing happening. They say, well, I was on a bridge and I was chatting to this guy, and I just couldn't believe how amazingly detailed his coat was. And I kept talking to him about this, that, and the other, and it's like, okay, to you that doesn't mean anything, but what it really meant to them is it's not the experience I was expecting. Although it was an amazing, fantastic experience to me, like, yes, jackpot, gold, we can move from there. To them, it was like, no, I wanted to meet such and such a person, or I wanted to go to such and such a place, and I didn't seem to be able to get there, and all these kinds of things. So we're talking like 5 to 10 years of this kind of experimentation and experience reporting, where I kind of sifted together, what do they need to get to this place? What do I need to do psychologically? What do I need to prepare up front? How do I move them across from the waking state to this other state? But then importantly, once they're over there, there's certain things we need to do straight away. Because if you just leave people to wander around in that state within their mind, they can get into all kinds of trouble wandering around and doing stupid things. So I kind of set up a kind of structure and a pro forma. This is what you need to get in. This is what you're going to do when you get in. This is who you're going to meet. This is the contacts you're going to set up. This is the kind of environment you're going to create. And it's going to be happy and upbeat and high energy, so that the experience you have will be a reflection of the state that you're in. So that was how EBT was born.
What does EBT stand for?
For me, it was an enhanced visualization technique.
Okay.
Because my PhD was all about mental imagery, imaginative consciousness, and how they all related to one another, and how could you enhance one over the other, and what does it mean to have imagination. And ultimately the research shows that imagination in the waking state is this very dim cousin of the imaginative consciousness that you have when you go into this other state, where in essence you can have any type of experience that you want.
What kind of techniques did you use? Was that like a hypnotic type?
Well, the good thing is although I do have a diploma in clinical hypnotherapy, it's not really a hypnotic technique. A lot of it is geared towards losing your body image. And what does that mean? So, for example, if I say to you now, close your eyes and put your finger on your nose, hopefully, if you haven't had a few beers, you will know exactly where your nose is and put your finger on it. You don't need to look in a mirror or try and work out what's happening. And that's because your mind keeps a map of where every part of your body is. And the idea is that what you want the mind to do is to lose that body image, that proprioception, as we would call it. So there's a lot of relaxation involved until it feels like your body is becoming numb. That's the state that we're trying to get to start with. That's very, very important, because without that, nothing's going to happen. So people say, yeah, Phil, I'm really relaxed now. Like, okay, the fact that you're talking to me and the fact that you're asking questions tells me that you're not really in that relaxed state of, maybe physically, but now I need to mentally relax you. I need to kind of dim down the waking consciousness, allow that to go down. And then as that comes down, another type of consciousness, very, very subtle type of consciousness, starts to rise up. But it's very, very fragile. If during that case, as one's coming down and the other one's slowly coming up, if you start to ask questions using your analytical part of your mind, an analytical type of consciousness arises and crushes the other consciousness. So what tends to happen is, as I relax people, and I'm saying, relax, let go, imagine all kinds of things happening to your body that relax you. If they then start asking questions, this other consciousness gets crushed down, and then this analytical waking consciousness comes in. So I advise them not to keep endlessly asking questions about things, because they are stopping this other consciousness from rising up.
Is this state similar to what is known as the liminal state?
What is the liminal state, matey?
The liminal state is right before you go to sleep and right as you're waking up. It's a state of semi-consciousness when you might be running some high alpha waves, I guess.
I suppose one of the things I want to say about EVTs, at no point during any of this state do you disappear or lose consciousness or, leave the world or become unconscious. You are conscious all the way through it. And I suppose what it is I've looked at some Buddhist meditation techniques, extremely advanced, where they're able to move straight from the waking state into this altered state of consciousness. And EVT is that, except that they're doing it by themselves. And to start with, I guide you. I get you to that state, fully aware of what's happening, fully aware of what you're experiencing around you, and then moving you and I suppose holding your hand, for want of a better word, to move you into this other state. Hand hold you through to this other state, and then from this other state, build certain things within the mind, and then from there you explore. And then I teach people how to enter that state themselves without me doing anything. In a typical session lasting a day or two, they might go into that state, say 10 or 15 times by themselves. And by the time they leave me, they're able to access that other state of consciousness any time that they want. So this is not a explore and have an interesting experience. This is opening up and what we call in psychology, we're creating an access consciousness. It's almost like a ladder from this waking consciousness to that other type of consciousness. And you can lift that ladder up whenever you want, go across, explore, decide that you want to finish now, take the ladder down and come back wide awake. So this isn't saying you have to keep coming back to me and only I've got the key and you have to keep coming back. I create that for you, and then together we test it over and over and then I show you how to open it and close it, and then what types of things you can experience and move into.
That's very different from the other guests that have described, sort of out-of-body experiences and so on, because those people have been unconscious in the conscious part.
That's
of what
right.
You're talking.
Yeah, sometimes I've had the experience where, in terms of an out-of-body state, I would call an EBT state kind of like an out-of-body state, for want of a better word.
But you were aware of it on the conscious level at the same time.
Well, the thing is,
it's different.
Yes, you can enter an out-of-body state consciously without losing consciousness. So a lot of people feel they need to become unconscious and kind of wake up in the OBE state. But with EBT, you don't have to lose consciousness, so you can move to the OBE state directly. So you don't. I know that in lucid dreaming, like sometimes I will go to sleep and wake up in a lucid dream, like, hey, great, wonderful. But with EBT, you don't lose consciousness. What you do is the thing that drives your waking experience of reality dies right down, and then this other consciousness that might be something like dream consciousness, OBE consciousness, NDE consciousness, whatever you want to call it, starts to rise up, and then you kind of follow the wave with it, and then you go into it. And there's techniques to show you how to go in and how to establish a kind of a bridgehead, how to consolidate that, and then how to explore on from there.
So, Phil, how does this relate to your grieving practice? You're helping people with their grieving.
Sure. So that side of it. So for me, it was like, hey, this is fascinating. If I take a normal EBT session, once they are in, I will introduce them to their higher self. There'll be a kind of introduction, an explanation of what the higher self is. They can have that conversation or whatever. And I then use the higher self as the guide to that space. So the higher self is going to look after that person and make sure they don't get into trouble. One of the things that moved me towards what about people who have lost people, who have passed over and all this kind of thing, is it started with my mother when my father died. And I think it's, in my mum and dad's day, kind of couples stayed together forever and they were kind of life partners. And when my father died, my mother just lost it completely. And she basically wanted to join my father. And I was thinking, what can I do? What can I do? What the hell can I do? It's like every day my mother was, for like a year, she was crying and distraught and depressed and didn't want to live and all these things. Like, for me, it was soul destroying. I was thinking, what if I use EBT, get her contact higher self, and then we agree with the higher self that we can go and meet my father? That's how it all started with my mother.
Let me ask you one thing. I'm going to interrupt you because we have to understand that not everybody here knows what the higher self is, which is to say, I have an understanding of it, and Kate probably does, but we could have people listening to us, and they don't know what you mean by higher self. So I'm just going to interrupt you for a second, and you will explain what you mean by higher self.
Certainly. Okay, within every single person, there is a totally actualized, consolidated, integrated part of them, which we call the higher self. Some people call it the soul, some people call it other things. But the simplest way to describe it is there's an aspect of you which is just totally integrated and actualized, knows everything that you need to do, knows everything that you've done previously, knows what you should be doing, but since you have free will watch you do what you are doing and then be looking at you saying, why the heck are you doing that? But it's this part of you that can give you unconditional love and can help you explore that state. It's the bit of you that remains after everything else is gone, and some people would say that it extends across multiple lifetimes and is with you forever. But that's the part of you that knows exactly what needs to be done, that lives in that space all the time and knows exactly everything about you, your purpose, what you need to do, how you need to do it, and in what ways that needs to be achieved. I don't want to wander into the spirity kind of wordy stuff, but this is definitely a construct within mind that is if you ever thought you were ever alone in the world, once you meet your higher self, you know emphatically that you are never ever alone in this world, and that this part of you is there, loves you unconditionally, and is with you all the time, even if you sense them or not. So it's with you all the time.
Well, that was a very good explanation, and I'm sorry to have taken you off script there in a certain sense of we were with your mother in her bereavement. So
yeah, sure, no problem.
Like to go back to that.
Yeah, sure. So
did your mother agree with most of your work at that before you started to help her through bereavement, or did she feel it was sort of a little bit out there?
It's it's really interesting. It's like I think it's all mothers and daughters and mothers and sons and anything to do with your mother. They're going, oh, that's wonderful, as they're stroking your head, and you're looking at their eyes and you're going, you're saying it's wonderful, but I can see you don't really believe this, do you, mother? With grinding teeth. And mother's going, why are you grinding your teeth, son? No reason, mother. So it's one of those things. They love you unconditionally, but it's like you do want to kind of stroke it's very exciting relationships that everyone has with their mother. So she was kind of like, well, I'll give it a go. Like, well, thank you very much, mother. I shall give it a go too. It's like, let's have a bit of fun. So it was a case of, I said, okay, relax, off we go. So my mother, if I put her on that scale, she was kind of upper middle, not very easy, but one of these people that she responded very well. And I normally, when they talk to people, especially in psychology, they say, never work on any of your family, never work on your parents, even though the parents need the most work. So it's a case of, I'm sure my sons don't think I need any work, but you never know. So my mother was very responsive, and it's like, okay. So I taught her all the techniques. So to start with, it's a bit laborious, getting her relaxed, building up the access point. It's the unconscious has kind of like a lock, and I need to make a key. And the process for every single person is different, but it has a very common part. So it's a lock and key affair. I generate the key, the unconscious has the lock, we put the key in the lock, turn it, we have access. Taught her how to meet her higher self, taught her how to experiment within that environment, because you need to get used to things like, well, I'm just going to fly around in the sky for a bit. But this isn't like flying in the sky where you're thinking you're flying in the sky. You are in the sky, looking down 1,000 feet going, oh my God, I think I'm going to be sick. Because you are up in the air, you're zooming towards the earth, you're out in space, you're under the water. It's one of those environments where you really have to get used to being there to understand the rules that govern that environment. And then it was a case of, right, this is what we want to do. So with negotiation with her higher self, it was a case of, I want to meet my mother to meet my father. And once the higher self says, yeah, that can be done, no problem, it's merely a case of where's the meeting place and then meeting there. And then it's a case of, because EBT allows you access to that space anytime you want, my mother could go and see my father anytime she wanted after that. There you go. But my mother was not happy enough with that.
No?
My mother was not. Our mothers ever happy? Yes, they are. We love them so much. It's a case of my mother had a little bit of a trick. It's like, so I came in one day, hi, Mum, how you doing? Oh, happy, all that. And she's sat there talking like, what's going on? I brought your father in. Like, what the hell are you talking about? So she wasn't content with just going into the EBT space. If you develop EBT to a high degree, you can bring them into the waking state. So in the same way, if you imagine that, this is why I teach people, if say the left-hand side is awake and aware, and then we tunnel along to the right-hand side, which is the EBT state, if you leave those two states open, then things that happen in the EBT state can be imprinted or projected over your visual field so that you can experience things with your eyes open. What does that mean? My mother could see my father sat in front of her in the home whenever she wanted to. So she didn't have to even go into EBT anymore. She could just bring my father to her. And it's like, well, how is he? He says, well, he's sat there reading the paper like he always does. Okay. Are you happy with that? Yeah, it'll do. You're welcome. Oh, okay. So what it said to me is like, this is, you can develop this state, this EVT state is the start of a space that you can explore within your mind. So you get all the tools that you need to start that exploration. And the good thing is, instead of it being like a one-off, wow, that was amazing, and then it's gone, like, oh, finished, you can go into that state over and over and over again. And the more you go in, the easier and easier that it gets. So, sorry.
So you've done this with a number of people.
Oh, yes.
And they were able to meet those that had passed over that they wanted to, thereby eliminating the need for, say, a medium or something of that nature. Were any of these people able to bring back with them either from the waking, from the EVT state or the crossover state? Were they able to bring back veridical information? That is, information that they did not know prior to this technique, and after having spoken to Uncle Joe, they found out like where Uncle Joe left his
hid the bodies. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But they were all happy because they were an EVT. I think right. So this is a very important point. What tends to happen in our game, as I call it, is that there's a lot of people that want to do out-of-body experiences and look on the top of the cabinet and see the sealed envelope and read numbers and all that kind of thing. I say, okay, you guys go and do that. What we have here is I think possibly the first time, I don't know, access to the non-conscious mind that is in connection with whatever else it's connected to, and it seems to be vast. And I think the word, I'm not being clever or smart when I think that the access is unlimited in terms of what you can experience. I think we're looking at a kind of step change in access to the non-conscious mind and the other states that also brings in with it. Those people that want to talk to Uncle Joe and find out where the gold's hidden and the will and all that kind of stuff, I don't really ask them that deep. So the kind of people I'm talking to are not those that are like, I want proof of life, or I want to, Uncle Joe left and I really didn't like him and I want to ask him a question and give him a hard time. I talk to people every day almost whose lives have kind of stopped because the people that they love have passed on, and it's not those that are passed on that are the problem, it's those that are left behind are wounded, and some people never ever get over that. And these are people that their lives, to some extent, have stopped moving forward. They just cannot get past the idea that their loved one has gone forever. And for me, when I do bereavement counselling, I don't ever talk about EVT because, for my duty of care, and especially in terms of counselling, in terms of what you're allowed to talk to your clients about. Counseling is all about managing the emotional kind of wreckage that's left behind for those that in their minds understand from psychological perspective that their loved ones are gone, they're not coming back, there's nothing can be done, there's no solution. And when I counsel these people, my heart's kind of breaking at the same time, because I'm thinking, if you could just understand, these people are not very far away. This is what EVT has shown me, is that, one, everybody can have access to it. And I've tried it with many, many people, and they all get in. 2, I guarantee that you will get in. 3, it's not that far away, to tell you the truth, in terms of the process. It's a little bit convoluted, and each person is different, which tends to tell me that certain techniques, if you try them, certain other techniques were a bit linear, say listening to tapes or suggestions or whatever, that won't work given where it is that you need to go and the things that you need to do. So I talk to people whose lives have been shattered. And so they're not real, God bless Fahrusha, Uncle Joe and his will and all that kind of stuff. But these are people who, in many cases, also want to die. because they can't live without the person who's passed on. So it's pretty heavy duty, emotionally. It's an emotional roller coaster. So when I talk to those people, I do a lot of upfront counselling in terms of talking about the person who's passed over, and I'm trying to gauge on an emotional scale so where they are in terms of not so much coming to terms, but them kind of understanding there could be another option here. We could explore other things.
Do you think they're actually contacting, or for better words, or accessing the person who has died? Or do you think it's perhaps an inner imagination and, their thoughts about the person who's passed on that start to take a very real presence?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that what tends to happen is what tends to provide the veridical proof for the person undergoing the process is when the person who has passed over tells them something. First of all, when you imagine something in the waking state, there's always this idea that you're kind of creating it. It's almost like an artist creating a picture. You're doing it. Yours is the hand behind the screen. When you're over in the EVT state, though, things are just doing whatever they're doing. The higher self is talking to you, giving you insight, telling you things. And from all the kind of conversations I've had with people who've met the higher self, these are ordinary people in the street saying howdy doody and hey up and all that kind of stuff. They don't have any of this philosophical knowledge about the nature of life. But when they start talking to me from the meetings they have from their higher self, it's like, oh my word, where are you getting all this from? And over and over again, it's like they're connecting to something that is beyond them, or it's within them, and within them is also connected to something else. So when they talk to their daughter or their son or their mother, father, whoever, they have these conversations that are just like, first of all, I ask them, what's it like? It's my daughter talking to me. Tell me why you think it's your daughter. Because she's telling me this, she's telling me that. She's telling me off for this, she's telling me off for that. She's talking about this. It's like, well, it's like you're having a proper conversation with your daughter. Yes. And yeah, so that's what, for me, sort of says, I'm ticking the yes, there's something very, very special going on here. And when you ask people, would you rather have EVT and talk to your daughter or no EVT? No, I want EVT and I want to talk to my daughter. Okay, fine.
We should also get some information. I'm sure people are interested in contacting you, Dr. Davidson, like,
Yes.
As far as your website or publications. They probably this would be a good time to tell them.
I am the mystery person.
I
Fahrusha
see.
called me the mystery man.
Aha.
See, what's happened? See, so why am I doing this? So why am I not my phone ringing off the hook and people queuing up outside my house banging my door down? For a long time, because I'm a bit scientific, I do have a bit of a scientific principle here, is I've been running these tests, for want of a better word. How do I get these people in? Can I guarantee it? So now I'm holding up my hand. You can't see me because you turned off the video. I'm holding up my hand saying, I will guarantee this for you. And what does that mean? 1, you will get in. 2, you will be able to get in whenever you want. 3, as long as you keep up the practice, you will always be able to have that access to that state. And then 4, never happens, I tell you now. Okay. I always ask these people, please give me an update of how you're getting on. So for the first week or 2, it was amazing. I was in space looking at the Earth. I met my mother. She was moaning again. And then I went to fly around the world. I went shopping in New York. And then you get all this kind of detail. And about 2 weeks later, nothing.
Really?
Oh, I think they just, because some people want to develop it. Other people have such intimate experiences. I know, working with some people very closely for quite a while. Like, for example, first meeting the higher self, some people cannot talk for an hour or 2 because they're so emotionally overloaded with kind of, I'm asking them, are you okay? You okay? And they're just nodding and smiling and crying. It's like they can't talk. It's such a beautiful thing. It's beautiful.
That's almost what people used to call the guardian angel that was always with you.
Well,
That's the thing, yeah.
Maybe the same thing, but we really don't know.
Right.
And those people who have been on like a camping trip and they fall down in a hole and then some stranger comes along and it's like the third person or something, and this person helps them out of the hole, and then they turn around to say thank you, and the person has disappeared. It's a phenomena. I probably don't have the right name for it. It's not the third person, but it's some name like that. Are you aware of that, Phil?
Oh yes, absolutely. But you know, when I was talking about these 4 types of people, for some people they only need a little bit of encouragement or a bit of the technique, and then they're off. And these are the people who can also bring the experiences in the EBT state with your eyes closed into the waking state with their eyes open. So, for want of a better word, they are the people, you know, like I imagine mediums and clairvoyants with their eyes open saying, you know, Tommy's here and he's talking to me, and they're looking at someone. I've had this with my sister-in-law when I went to Canada. She would briefly close her eyes while just stood up and talking to me after doing EVT and saying, you know, my daughter's here, she's talking to me. My higher self is next to me, she's talking to me. And so it's like, wow, this stuff is like, it's a little bit mind-blowing to start with, but once you've heard it over and over and over again, it's like, okay, this is something that I think that from a scientific perspective, don't want to get too much bogged down in it. You can recreate it over and over. This is the thing.
Could you tell us the story of your sister-in-law? She did send you a recommendation, a commendation. I don't know what the word you want to use for it, but she did write you up quite a letter of recommendation, I would say.
Sure, it's 15 years ago, my brother and his wife and family, they moved to Canada. And it's a wonderful place if you like to run across the road and get a snack from the bar at minus 20 degrees centigrade. Yeah. My brother says, hey, Phil, let's go across the road and get something from some place or other that everyone knows. Do I need a coat? No. I'm looking at the TV thinking, it says minus 20 outside. My brother's there in a T-shirt. I'm running across the road. I'm stuck to the floor. I can't move my feet. My brother's going, come on, you wimp. And it's like, I think I nearly had a near-death experience, or is it near-frozen experience? So thank you, Eric. God bless. But anyway, onto the story. My brother moved to Canada 15 years ago and brought up his children there, 3 girls. Great. Adele was his wife. But at Christmas time, his youngest daughter died unexpectedly. So she was only 18. She was nearly 19. And I'd been away in Manchester, you know, and I'd been driving back, and I got home, and my son rang me up saying, I think Violet's died. What do you mean, Violet's? What are you talking about? This can't have happened. And then I saw that I had these voicemail messages on my phone, and I'd been out of contact into cell phone contact. And then it's like, oh my God, what's happened? And then my brother rang me up. So it's like, other than the shock, so I went into kind of counseling mode a little bit. It's like, okay, just keep talking to me. So we were talking for hours and hours and hours. And I said to him, I want to come over and meet you. And he said, will you do EVT with me? Because he knew that I'd been doing this type of research. And I said, if you want me to do it, and, you know, taking into account that, you know, the recommendation for all psychologists is don't work on your family. But for me, it's like the need outweighs the recommendations. They need me to help them. And the phone must have been on speakerphone, because his wife, Adele, said, Phil, I want you to do EVT with me as well. And I says, and what do you want to do that for? Because I want to contact my daughter. And so it's like, we had long conversations before I went there. And it was about 3 months before everything was sorted out, and I went over. And I worked with my brother first. I told him what it is we were going to do, outlined every single part of the process, and we went through with him, and we got him into EVT. And then he went and met his daughter. But for him, it was emotionally destroyed. I think I've never seen, I feel emotional, but I've never seen my brother, a man, howl. And the emotion was absolutely raw. I'd never seen anyone cry so much in my life. It was absolutely heartbreaking. And so my brother, I said, all right, you're going to go to one side and you need some time to kind of like relax, I suppose, and come away from EBT. Don't do it yet. I think you need to wait a little bit. And Adele came forward, and we started the process with Adele. And she was sat there, and she said, we're all smiles and everything. She's a bit nervous. I'm a bit nervous. It's like, okay, we're going to start the EBT process. And with her, it took about a day. We're talking 6 or 7 hours. And we developed the access state. So the access state is you're able to go from the waking state over and across and meet your higher self. So she was in. So from technical term is you're in the EBT state, you've met your higher self is talking to you a little bit, and you're starting to explore that state. But still, what you find is that even when people are in the EBT state, they need to develop what I call presence. And what does that mean? It's a case of when they are in the EBT state to start with, they are minimally in the state. So they're there, they can see the higher self, they're in an environment, they might see buildings, people, whatever. But if they move their focus away from it, some of those scenes can kind of start to fade away, and they have to keep the presence. They have to develop a presence within that state. So we tried, quote unquote. I thought, we might as well have a look. It's getting late. We might as well have a go at getting to meet her daughter. And we had 3 unsuccessful attempts. And for me, I thought we're trying a bit too quickly to try to get to her daughter. Certain things need to happen first, and she needs to have a chat with her higher self to see whether it's okay to meet her. And her higher self was saying, not yet. You haven't got enough presence in this state. So it's like you haven't been in long enough to develop a bit of skill in there. So she went home that night. She was a bit unhappy, but I was saying to her, look, you've met your higher self. You're in the EBT state. Everything is going as I see it should be going in terms of the plan. You're doing very well in terms of time frame. Tomorrow we will build on that in the EBT state and start to build your presence and awareness in there so you can get a bit of depth to it. So she came back the next day. Before she left, I said to her, what have you... She'd had this big kind of jar of... She was drinking something all day, and I thought, this must be like a protein shake, keep your energy up. And I said, so what have you been drinking all day? And she says, I made a cup of coffee at 9 o'clock, and I've been sipping on that all day. It's like, no wonder not too much is happening. You need to keep your energy levels up, you need to eat, you need to put a lot of energy into body, because the brain, you're using your brain a lot, needs that energy to create this environment for you so that you can access it. So I told her off, told her that she needed to go home, she needed to eat a proper meal and come back the next day, and we're going to eat properly and keep snacking through the day, keep our energy levels high. During the night, she did EBT by herself. I hadn't told her to do this, and she'd met her higher self, and her higher self kept saying, no, wait, you need to wait. And the higher self didn't seem to be saying very much. For me, I understand to start with, the higher self may seem like it's not really saying anything, but it's not the higher self that isn't saying anything. You're not in enough, for want of a better word. So she comes back the next day, and we sit down, and it's like, look, one of the things that stops you having this presence within the state is any kind of baggage that you bring through with you. And of course, she would have had a lot of emotional baggage is the wrong word. Excuse me for the wrong word. But a lot of emotion around her. So it's like we need to have a little bit of a therapeutic process first. And I took her through a counselling session, and she must have cried. And again, never seen anyone cry so much. It's, again, heartbreaking. But that crying seemed to release a lot of emotional kind of emotion. So the next time we went into the EBT state, we talked to the higher self, and now suddenly the higher self is chatting, it's starting to talk. This is what we need to do. This is what you need to construct. This is where you need to meet her, and this is what we need to do. And she came out of that state, and she was like crying. She had a mask on. She came out. She was crying. I said, "Have you met your daughter?" She says, "No, I've really met my higher self now, and she's beautiful." And she was telling me all about her and the kind of energy that comes off her. And then I kind of knew, yes, she's now more present within that state. Now I think we can move to meet her daughter. So in the second session, I asked her, can we talk to your higher self? Can we agree? Where can we meet your daughter? And she gave her a place where she could meet her daughter. And then she went and met her. And again, I'm watching how she's reacting to everything. And again, she's a lot of tears, crying, uncontrollable crying. And she took the mask off, because we use an eye mask just to block out light. And she's saying, yes, I met my daughter. She's there. She's in this particular place. We were talking. It was all emotionally overwhelming, so she had to come out. And she went to wash her eyes, to, put a bit of water on her face to come around a little bit. And as she closed her eyes again, she just closed her eyes for a second, like, oh, and says, oh my God, I can still see my daughter. Says, and now it's not a case of she needs to lie down and be quiet and relax. She's now standing up with her eyes closed, saying, I can see my daughter, she's here. And as I look round, my higher self is next to me with a hand on my shoulder, saying, it's okay, I'm here if you need me. And she's talking to her daughter.
Amazing.
And it wasn't, for me, it was like amazing. So it's like, I said, open your eyes again. She says, I said, open your eyes again. She opens her eyes, says, now close them. What do you see? She says, my daughter's still here, and now I'm talking to her. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so that's all we did all that day then, was she would go to meet her daughter. Her particular place where she met her was on a nice, beautiful beach. And she was there with her daughter talking to her. And she says, Phil, she says, thank you, because I didn't know what I was going to do, because she said she just didn't want to live anymore. Said, but now she's got her daughter back. It's not the most ideal situation, but it's far, far better that she can now talk to her daughter whenever she needs to or wants to. And so that night when she went back, I got a big hug of my sister-in-law. I think the first hug I've ever had of her. And that's nice. And she went home, and she came back the next day all excited. Phil. I says, what? She says, last night I was asleep, and I play a little bit of music in the background that just loops round. It's just something to put your attention on if your mind starts to wander. And she says, Phil, I says, what? I says, the music started playing. I said, did you have it on your headphones? She says, no, it was playing in my head. I says, what are you talking about? It says, the music started playing, it was in my head, and then my daughter came to meet me. She wanted to meet me. It was lovely. Fantastic. So she meets her daughter. I know she says 2 or 3 times a day, but I talked to Eric, and it's like, no. It's more like 10 to 15 times a day. But even her daughter says, hey, Mum, I still need time for me, because, mother's ringing up daughters all the time. Get on daughter's nerves. So even in that space, the daughter's sort of saying, look, can you just give me 5 minutes? I'm doing my own stuff over there. So there's the stuff that Adele is learning, and her higher self is teaching her what she needs to do and how to grow in that particular environment. And then she's also learning what her daughter needs to learn in that state. So it's absolutely fantastic.
Well, I don't really have any comment on that. It's just, it's unbelievable in a sense. I am sure it happened. So her daughter actually had a physical presence to her, to your sister-in-law.
Yes.
And it was the same figure or person that she was in her real life. Earthly.
That's right, yeah. So when we say present, she can see her and talk to her and
as if
be
she
with
were
her and
sitting
absolutely there. Yes, exactly. I'll go on holiday with her. Or I think she was saying that her daughter really liked. Is it super? I think the program series is Supernatural.
Yeah.
And she was asking her, what are you doing when I'm not here? She says, I'm sitting with the guys watching them rehearse for their TV episodes, and I'm thinking, fantastic. And it's like, so when people tell me stuff like that, I think, okay, you can either think they're making it up, but I don't think so. And so that's where I sort of say there's 2 aspects of EVT now. One is exploration of your inner mind and developing yourself as a person, and integrating and healing and exploring the mind, all of that spiritual stuff.
Now, the mother and daughter met, mutual agreement, I'm assuming at a beach someplace, But once the meeting ended, where did the daughter go? Did she tell her mother?
This is, well, do you know when I told you that people tend to tell me what's happening for a week or two, and then it's my frustration is like, I want to know what her daughter does when she's not with her mother. But I don't feel I can ask her mother, hey, next time you're in, give her a clip round the ear and say, hey, what are you doing when you're not here? So it's a case of they are doing something. And I think that this is the bit where, since most of my research has always been about, because people cannot get in, as I call it, there's a blockage and barriers. And now I'm saying with EBT, you can get in anytime you like. So you can really now start to do research. So for people who want to develop this, I'm sort of saying, look, why don't we do a development kind of group and say, look, this is the levels that I'll take you to, and then from there on in, we'll build and build and build, and we can build up almost like a repertoire of the types of experiences, what's in there, what types of stuff you can get, how the higher self presents itself, what it wants to tell you, what you should know, what you shouldn't. I mean, I've had people go down their timelines, and I know there's such things as timeline therapy, but this is actually going down the timeline with your higher self to aspects of you and then fixing things and coming back into the present day. So the type of experience you can have is unlimited as far as I'm concerned. And you can, it's difficult to describe. Unless you've had these types of experiences, it's just phenomenal.
So as a final kind of question, it doesn't have to be the very last thing you say, of course, but just to wrap things up on a certain level, what are you going to do now? I mean, where are you going with this now, Phil?
There's more?
What's that?
There's more? That's pretty good, right, where you are.
I think that the takeaways for all of this is no more is it a kind of hit and miss affair. Now there's a process that takes you from the waking state to the inner state. So that's number one, tick. 2, whenever you want. 3, exploration. So there's 2 types. There's people who want to explore. They've been to other seminars, other types of techniques and things, and they've not worked. Forget all that. Come and do EBT, because now you can start from a position where you can explore all those things that you could never get before, whenever you want, all the time, if you want. So there's the explorers. And then on the other side, this is where I now feel confident enough to say, look, for those of lost people that passed over and they feel their lives in some ways have stopped, and they're stopped. Now I want to offer EBT for people who want to specifically contact those that have passed over. And it isn't in a kind of, spirity kind of, you know what I mean, kind of any weird ways. Nothing wrong with mediums. But what you have to do is when you have a medium, you have to get an interpretation. Whereas now I'm saying, look, in the right way, with the right approach, with respect, and my duty of care to make sure you have the best possible experience, I want to help those people who have lost people who have passed over and saying, look, do you want to meet them again? Not only that, do you want to be able to meet them whenever you want to? And would that be interesting to you? Would you want that? And I think the overwhelming answer would be yes. So 2 offerings there.
You're still a little bit of an ITT guy.
Oh yeah, of course.
Just manipulating the psyche there.
Oh yeah. What I'm trying to do is, because this is the whole process is a one-on-one with me, so I'm not going to send you off to listen to things and whatever. You are with me for 2 days, and I keep going over and over and over, finding out what you've experienced, changing the structure, going in again and again and again. So it's one-on-one with me. Because I'm a bit of an IT geek, what I'm trying to do is trying to make that initial period with me a bit shorter. It just stops me getting a headache, and I can at least have a drink and something to eat. Because if I don't, I sometimes end up not eating or drinking all day because I'm just that focused on the person. So I am trying to make some technology that helps the first stage, which is getting to that completely flaked out, wonderfully relaxed, deep, right down there. That can take hours and hours, depending upon the type of person that keeps saying, hey, Phil, I think I'm really relaxed. Great. Now shut up, close your eyes. If you don't close your eyes, I will make you close your eyes with love and kindness. So yeah, I'm a bit of technology there. I'm trying to develop that.
Okay.
And then I'm hoping that I can, at the moment, EBT is a one-on-one. You're with me for 2 days and you are going to get in, I guarantee, and you're going to be able to access whenever you like, and we're going to do all kinds of great things. But I want to develop it so that we can get 3 or 4 people at a time, so I can and teach other people how to do it, because I think we need to teach more people how to do this, because the process actually works, and teach them all the little tricks of the trade on all the little twists and turns that the unconscious demands of you before you can access it. Because the unconscious, at the lowest level, says, hello, hi, Kate, how you doing? Hey, yeah. What? Oh, you're coming towards me. I don't think so. You're not coming in at all. And so you really have to agree, almost like you have to form an agreement with the unconscious about under what conditions would it allow you to consciously access and enter the unconscious part. And there's a lot of setup to start with that makes it a pleasant experience. And then the unconscious is sort of like, yeah, okay, you've met my requirements, in you go, minimally. And then we build and build and build on the other side so that you have access to your higher self and all those other things. So
can you give, perhaps an email address if someone wants to get in touch with you, Phil?
Certainly. I think I will give you my main email address. And if I receive no emails, then, hey, it was nice talking to you guys.
Hey, Phil, I'll send you an email.
Oh, thanks, Fahrusha. Yeah, I've been really good tonight. You've agreed. Yes, I've been good.
Yes, you've been very well behaved.
Yes.
Excellent.
I know him, and he's been very well behaved.
She says I'm not very well behaved. Thanks, Fahrusha.
No, you are very well behaved tonight.
Yeah, only tonight. If you want to send me an email, send it to Philip with 2 L's .Davidson, like in Harley Davidson, at btinternet, all one word, .com.
Okay, we're going to also put that on our websites, and when we put this up on YouTube, which will not be immediately, it will go there as well, unless between now and then you have a website which you want to direct people to. Okay.
I think when you put it on your website, I will probably have a website by then. And I think this is one of the reasons why I haven't really put anything out there yet, is now I feel confident enough to offer EVT.
Okay. That makes sense.
Well, thank you, Dr. Phillip Davidson, for this very interesting presentation. Kate?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think I'll really have to get a few people in the family to listen to this. Thank you so much. It's a whole different viewpoint from the people who are interested that we typically do not get. This is a little bit different.
Yes.
And very interesting.
And I think that there are a lot of people out there that want, the do-it-yourselfers. Particularly here in the U.S., there are a lot of people who have that pioneering spirit, want to do things themselves rather than go to someone else to get it done for them, as in, say, a medium.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you again.
Thank you, and we'll call you once Dr. Phil. Okay, Dr. Phil.
Thank you very much.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. No, he doesn't. No, do not call yourself Dr. Phil. No.
I've got the same haircut as him, though, unfortunately, but no mustache.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I like the treatment on the top. It's very lovely. Anyhow, let's not belabor Dr. Phillip Davidson too much, and say goodbye for now. And then we're going to give our little spiel and sign off as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not too much else to say. We went to the festival. It was interesting.
Yeah, we visited the Pine Bush UFO Festival, and maybe shortly we will have a recording as a special part of our broadcast of my my little lecture there on
extraterrestrial
evolution.
Yeah, it was very good. It was
thank
nice.
you, Kate. Thank you.
I had a very appreciative audience.
And yes, I did. As Phil says, you'll get your $25 after the show. But I believe next time we may have a lady, a beautiful young lady that I know, who does a lot of work in the area of dreams and
that's sort of, in a way, it's almost what Dr. Davidson says, in a way, streaming,
remote viewing in dreams.
Yeah, it's interesting. One analogy you could say between this and ufology is that God knows there's no money in either one.
No.
And these people really do it out of a sincere effort to help others, I think, and
yes,
to discover and uncover truths that are not what you would typically get university grants to discover.
And this lady's name is Nancy Smith. Okay. And just another Smith who's involved with remote viewing. It's a very bizarre thing that there are so many Smiths involved with remote viewing. But that being said, she works in a vein that involves dreams and remote viewing. So we're hoping to have her on next time. And in addition, we will possibly be talking about a wonderful book that was written by one of our listeners and may have been influenced by some of the programs we had on. So I will put that out as a teaser.
Oh, okay.
And we'll talk more about it next time. And now...
Oh, okay. From Shattered Reality. Goodbye.
Goodbye from Kate and Fahrusha. This is Shattered Reality.